E-bikes seem to be everywhere these days. With just a quick search, you'll find hundreds of options at all kinds of price points. It can feel pretty overwhelming trying to choose the right one, especially with all the specs you have to consider. But here's the thing, ENGWE believes they have figured it out with a solid, affordable option. This is the ENGWE P20. I really think ENGWE has nailed the budget-friendly e-bike market. To be honest, the P20 just keeps that vibe going while offering a design that I think a lot of people in the UK will probably dig. Now, when you think folding bike, you want it to be lightweight for easy handling, especially if you're hopping on and off trains. Well, the P20 weighs in at just 18.4 kilograms, and honestly, it folds up in under 10 seconds. This design feature is going to be one of its main selling points, because honestly, it is really fast to fold up. The 250-watt brushless hub motor is smart enough, using a torque sensor to adjust the motor's power depending on how hard you're pedaling. You get 3 speed settings to match your effort, which to be honest is more than enough. But is this e-bike really an option for everyone? So the burning question is this product truly worth the asking price? Well, let's first start by unboxing it. So unboxing the bike, and there is a little setup required, but I won't go into too much detail on this. It comes pre-assembled to a large extent, meaning the frame and wheel should already be attached. You might just need to unfold the bike, attach the handlebars, and possibly adjust the seat to your preference. So let's talk about the design and build quality first, because it's certainly a unique looking bike, especially in this color. The build quality of the P20 is pretty solid overall, and the design definitely stands out. The alloy frame gives it that sleek, futuristic vibe with sharp angular lines that make it look more unique from the other options on the market currently. It comes in a few colors, and I'll be honest, this one's not for everyone. The matte light finish looks really clean, but it's definitely one of those finishes that shows fingerprints and dirt pretty easily. So if you're the type who likes to keep things spotless, you might find yourself wiping it down a lot. As mentioned, the fold design on the ENGWE P20 is definitely one of its coolest features. Instead of the usual latches or clamps you see on most folding bikes, ENGWE uses magnets to connect the two halves of the bike together, one on each wheel. Honestly, it's a pretty smart move. It eliminates the need for any extra moving parts which could wear out or fail over time. The magnetic catch feels super solid too and is super easy to operate. You just bring the halves together and the magnets snap into place. It's a satisfying feeling, almost like everything just falls into place perfectly. I've always been a fan of simplicity in design, and this is a great example of that. Now moving on to the tyres of the P20, and I think these are definitely one of those things you'll either love or hate. They're chunkier, which gives the bike a tough, rugged look and adds some solid stability, especially if you're dealing with bumpy streets or uneven terrain. They're not as smooth as thinner, road-focused tyres, but the extra grip is a nice touch if you're looking for a more versatile ride. At 20 inches, they're perfect for city cruising and give you a comfortable, stable feel on smooth roads. But if you're thinking about hitting curbs or going off-road, they're not ideal. Without suspension, the ride can get a little bumpy on rougher paths. That said, the bike does a decent job at handling bumps for what it is. I didn't feel like I was getting tossed around too much, even when the roads weren't in the best shape. The hydraulic brakes on the P20 are decent for the price, but they're not exactly mind-blowing. Performance-wise, they do the job well enough. They're smooth and responsive, offering good stopping power when you need it, especially on urban rides or light trails. That said, they might not be as sharp or as high-end as some of the top-tier brands you'd find on pricier bikes, but for the price of the P20, it's a solid setup. I wouldn't expect to be hitting super high speeds and needing razor-sharp stopping force, but for everyday city commuting and light use, they're totally adequate. Now, unlike most e-bikes that either use a twist throttle or no throttle at all, the P20 has a thumb throttle, which is a bit of a different experience. The level of torque available through the thumb throttle is minimal, so it's not really enough to handle any real inclines. On a slight hill, it's barely enough to keep moving, and you'll probably have to start pedaling to help help out if you want to make it up witut too much effort. It feels more like an assist to get you started rather than a real way to power the bike, which can be a bit frustrating if you're hoping for more zip from the throttle alone. That said, it's actually not the worst thing in the world for a bike like this. The P20 is primarily designed for casual city commuting, so having a throttle that keeps you at a slow pace isn't necessarily a deal breaker. I actually liked having that option when I didn't feel like pedaling and just wanted to coast along the flat roads without breaking a sweat. But if you're someone who wants more power or a faster throttle for hills, you might find yourself a bit disappointed with this option. It's just something to consider. Now, the ENGWE P20 is a single-speed bike, and honestly, I think it strikes a good balance between simplicity and performance for city riding. The carbon belt drive is a standout feature for me. It's smooth, quiet, and avoids all the grease and mess you get with a regular chain. It's supposed to last a crazy 330,000 kilometers, so it's built to go the distance. That said, while it's pretty low maintenance, carbon belts tend to be a little less efficient than metal chains, so don't expect the same power transfer, especially if you're pushing the bike to its limits. When it comes to performance, the P20 handles really well. The motor is super quiet, and honestly, you kind of forget it's even there. The power delivery is smooth too, thanks to the torque sensors, and it's not jerky like some e-bikes I've tried before. You get this seamless experience where the bike responds to your pedaling without any sudden jolts, and that's a nice touch for a relaxed ride. It's also surprisingly easy to hit the top speed of about 15.5 miles per hour, which is perfect for city commuting. The motor's torque and the single-speed setup make it a breeze to accelerate without using up too much battery. That being said, the lack of gears can be a bit of a drag, especially if you want to go faster or climb steeper hills. Going over 18.5 miles per hour feels impossible because the cadence gets really high. For me, I found myself wishing for an extra gear or two. It will have just made those longer rides more comfortable and given me a little more flexibility. It's especially noticeable going downhill where you can't really push the speed any further. That being said though, on flat city streets, the P20 really shines. It's responsive, quick, and just a lot of fun to ride, so it nails the urban commuter vibe. The onboard computer on the P20 is pretty simple but gets the job done. The display is mounted on the left side of the handlebar, and while it's not huge, it's nice and clear, no squinting required. It's not flashy or overly complicated, but honestly, I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes less is more, and this display doesn't overwhelm you with too much info. Next to the display, you've got a little keypad where you can control a few things like turning on the rear indicators. I actually think that's a pretty handy feature. It's great for safety, especially in city traffic. Having those turn signals right there within easy reach is nice. It makes it feel a little more like you're riding a proper vehicle. However, one thing I notice is that the keypad and the display, while functional, could use a little more refinement. The buttons are a bit small and not super tactile, so sometimes I had to press a couple of times to get a response. It's not a deal breaker, but a little more responsiveness would have been nice. Overall, the onboard computer does exactly what you need it to, and honestly, I think that's all you can really ask for. It's straightforward, gets the job done, and doesn't overcomplicate things. Now moving on to the battery performance on the ENGWE P20, and it is honestly one of its standout features. ENGWE claims it can go up to about 62 miles on a full charge, and while I never pushed it that far in one go, I did a solid 20-mile ride without even draining the battery life that much. Now it's tough to give an exact figure on how much range I've gotten on each ride, because it varies based on the conditions, weather, terrain, and elevation all play a role. On one day, the battery might last longer if the weather is cooler and the route is flat. On another, you could see a bit more drain if you're dealing with hills or wind. But overall, I'd say the battery life is impressive, and I haven't had any moments where I felt like I'd run out of juice unexpectedly. Honestly, it's just nice to see a budget-friendly e-bike that actually delivers on its promises when it comes to battery range. So who is the P20 really for? Honestly, I'd say this bike is perfect for someone looking for an affordable, no-frills e-bike for casual city commuting or short rides around town. If you're not looking to break any speed records or take on serious off-roading, this bike will probably meet your needs just fine. It's ideal for those who want something simple and foldable, especially if you're hopping on trains or buses or you need to store it in a tight space. As for whether it's worth the asking price, I'd say absolutely. For what you're getting, the P20 is a solid deal. It's not perfect, but for the price, it's hard to beat. And with that all said, be sure to check this product out in the link in the description. Let me know what you think. Till next time.